Today there are some dignitaries in attendance that we would like to acknowledge. Mayor Hnachu from Sturgeon County, thank you for coming. And we also have Councillors Kristen Toms and Wayne Bokenford. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, you did.
We also have, is Louise here?
I don't see her.
I don't see Louise here. Louise is probably coming on a little later. Louise Bowder, she's a CAO for Gibbons. And Dan Deck, who is, I believe, a counselor for Mayor, sorry, my apologies, for Gibbons.
Hello, Louise and Dan are here.
I do believe we have representation from all chambers, and I do believe Fred Malott is here from the Legal Chamber. And we also have Sneda Vargas, who is from Alberta Labor and Immigration. And most importantly is Shannon Davis, who is our guest speaker for today. And I'm just gonna switch my screens here. Shannon is the team lead policy and communications for the Small and Medium Enterprise Relaunch Grant, with a background in tourism and in overseeing operations for the provincially operated visitor information centers. Shannon has been working for the province for over 20 years. So Shannon, I'd like to hand things over to you and let's get the session started.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see the slide deck that I've got. I've just got a very brief presentation today. I want to have lots of time for questions. So we'll just do this.
If I can just interrupt real quick, sorry,
Sure.
Shannon. If anybody has questions as Shannon is speaking, and if you can please put them in the chat window, and when Shannon is done her presentation, then we'll move over to the chat window.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds good. So the Small and Medium Enterprise Relaunch Grant Program, which, yes, the acronym is SMERG, which is awful, but it's very catchy. It stays in your mind. We're coming up to the close date of that, which is March 31st of this year. If an application is in the system, it will remain in kind of play. So it will be reviewed. So if it hasn't been approved right away, it still will be reviewed. So I know that people are quite worried that they haven't received their funds yet, and they're getting concerned that the date is coming up to close. If they have an application in the system, not to worry, okay? So that's just the first piece. Financial assistance is up to $20,000 for an existing organization, and an existing organization would be any business that was registered and in operations prior to February 29th, 2020. And then new businesses that started up between March 1st and October 31st of 2020, as of February 4th, are now eligible as well to get a payment, and that maximum is up to $15,000. So an existing business, so when prior to February 29th, 2020 operations, they can use, they have to provide they have to provide some revenue numbers to show that there was a minimum 30% revenue reduction. So they can choose from either April, May 2019 or February 2020 numbers and compare that to either April or May 2020 to show that 30% reduction. Once we determine the 30% reduction, we're not worrying about the April or May 2020 numbers. We're strictly looking at the pre-COVID revenues, and the grant is based on those pre-COVID revenues. So an existing business, it is, there's two payments that they can get. The first payment is maximum $5,000. So it's 15% of the pre-COVID revenue. So April, May 2019 or February 2020. And that's their first payment. If they were affected by the public health orders in November, which, let's face it, if you're affected by one, you're likely affected by the other, then they're eligible to come in for a second payment of up to $15,000. That is an easy application because the math is done automatically. They take the number from the first one that you got and they times it by 3 to determine your payment for the second application. If you are a new business, so one starting between March 1st and October 31st, 2020, you can choose between March and October 2020 numbers and compare that to a reduction in November, December 2020 to come up with their 30% revenue reduction. Again, once we determine that the 30% revenue reduction was met, we don't worry about November and December numbers anymore. We're strictly looking at your March to October, and then 15% of that times 3 up to a maximum of $15,000. It is very well explained in the program guidelines. I know it's hard to, I'm a learn by seeing person. So we have some sample calculations in there, and it should hopefully help everybody sort that out. And then also on February 4th, the minister announced that unregistered sole proprietors were also eligible to participate. Prior to that, you had to be registered with either Alberta Corporate Registry, Alberta Business Registry. Unregistered sole proprietors can either choose to come in under the existing organization stream or the new organization stream, depending on when they commenced operations, but they do have to provide quite a bit of additional information that registered businesses do not have to provide. Okay, this is just some general statistics. Sorry, I've got 2 computers open so I can see my notes page. Now this was pulled last week. I haven't updated it since last week. You can see here the sectors that are generally applying, the breakdown. Personal services, accommodation, food services, retail trade, they're consistently the most impacted sectors. So you can see that in this graph. 45% of the applications are Calgary-based, 38% are Edmonton-based, excuse me, and then the rest scattered throughout the province. So this was as of last, I believe, March 4th. There were 74,000 applications with approximately 40,000 distinct businesses. And then within that, 56,000 organizations have received funding. So some businesses have multiple organizations, so that kind of falls into that. So you can see that. And the average payment is for an existing business is about $3,700. And the average second payment for an existing business is approximately $11,000. So there's that. Let's move forward. These are some general questions that we get a lot. We do have a lot of applications that have mistakes in them, and they will be held for review. So it's really important if for this program and for any programs going forward that any information that you put in the application is correct. So if you're not sure about your corporate number, double check with the registries. If you're not sure about your legal name, same thing, check with registries. We get a lot of applications where that's had a serious impact in timeframes as to processing. Also, if you're putting in your banking information, make sure your banking information is correct. We have had many applications where people have put in the wrong banking information, and it creates a lot of delays for payment. So you can check the status of your application on the application portal. It will tell you if it's paid, if it's still under review, things like that. There are a list of eligibility requirements in the program guidelines, and we've updated this as of, I believe we've updated this the 4th of February with all of the programs that the federal funding or provincial funding programs that still will enable you to apply. There are many additional federal programs that if you've received that money, you are not eligible to apply for this program. So the list is pretty comprehensive as to what you can have received to make sure. So if you're applying to the program, just make sure you look through that list and make sure you haven't received funding from any of these other programs. we have a lot of people asking us for specific, they want to know if their business was affected. So we really point them back to the public health orders. We are not the public health order experts, but upon audit, any random audit that they do, you need to be able to, as a business, point to a public health order and show how that closed or curtailed your operations as a result of. So that's very key. I think that's about it. We just got our general information. We did create a instructional video, and that was as a result of feedback from various chambers, actually, that you know, the program itself is a bit confusing to apply for. Yes, it certainly is. So we have created this video to try and help people through the application process. So there's some videos on there, and that is about it. It's brief because I know everybody's got hot questions that they want to ask. So.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for your presentation. How long is that video by chance that you have on that website?
There's two different videos, actually. There's how to apply for the first payment and how to apply for the second payment. They're both on YouTube, and I'm not sure exactly how long they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say if they weren't very long, we definitely have time to, if you wanted to play them, but.
I feel like they're 5 minutes plus.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I actually listened to one of them when I was applying for the second time. And I think it was like about 3.5, 4 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It's really, really helpful. If people want to refer to them, they were really helpful.
So I don't see any questions right now in the chat box, but I do have a burning question. And I've been asking this question quite a bit to different various ministers, and still haven't got an answer. Wondering if you can help with that. There are several nonprofit organizations and businesses that might not meet the criteria for the first relaunch grant or the second relaunch grant, but they would qualify for year over year. Wondering if there's going to be any change for those nonprofit organizations.
No, I mean, the program's coming to a close. So the eligibility criteria is going to be what it is. So you have to be able to show those revenue losses in the months shown. And regardless of what organization you're in, there is no flexibility for months unless you're a seasonal business. The seasonal business can stretch it over. They can do a monthly average because they're only in operation for certain periods of the year. But if you're in operation year round, there is no flexibility for dates. And it just is to provide, you know, there's been a lot of people that ask us for flexibility in dates, but once you start opening the floodgates for flexibility, then it's a rodeo that you just can't get ahead of. So those dates are set in stone. When it comes to the new program, the Enhanced COVID Business Benefit Program, they're still working out all of the details on that. So I couldn't tell you, but I do think they are looking at some different revenue months, but I don't have that confirmed or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions that they would like to ask?
Yeah, I certainly do.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind. Shannon, thanks very much for your presentation. Really appreciate the information that's here. Are you able to share if there are specific or detailed program officers that can help companies as they come up with a question? Each one of their situations could be a little bit more challenging or confusing for them, those types of things. Are there specific resources there as a part of this program where they can engage directly with the businesses that are applying to this? And if so, are there different, contact numbers or emails that can be supplied to this group here or others in the future?
No, we direct everybody back to the general email box. So we have a team. So I lead the communications team. I have 8 people answering emails. And what they do is they'll do a brief assessment of the issue, and then they forward it on to whoever they think is the right person to take a look at it. So quite often I'm the one looking at everything and then triaging it out. So the general email box is the best way, and that we capture every single piece of contact that comes in that way. Yeah. And you're right, there are lots of different scenarios, lots of different, lots and lots of questions about different pieces. They're not sure what month, they're not sure how to fill out the application. They've got an accountant filling it out for them and things like that. So the general email box is just the best. Yeah. We are delayed. We are working through a backlog. We do have an alert on our email box that it's going to be 10 business days minimum turnaround, because we have so many pieces of contacts, so many emails coming in, that even staff are not able to be on top of it as much as we'd like. So it will get answered, but there may be a delay.
Okay, we have a question from Jean. What is the new enhanced program you mentioned?
So that's the enhanced COVID business benefit program. It was announced, last 2-3 weeks ago, I think.
I think it was
About 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. It's not launching until mid-April, and they are still building the program. So I cannot provide any more information other than what's on. Thank you, Anika, for posting that, because that is the only information that we have, is that little blurb that's online. The only reason I know about it is I am involved in that piece, but they are still building it and still trying to build the criteria. So.
Okay, another question we have is, how would a company incorporated in late 2019 compare revenue?
They can use February 2020 as their revenue comparison. So February 2020 to April or May 2020. If that helps.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Something I would just want to note, because this came up in a previous chamber conversation that I've had, just really make sure that all of your revenue information is correct. And because all applications are subject to random audit, and they will be asking you to verify that your revenue numbers were accurate. And again, that you can point to a public health order that, curtailed or closed your operations.
Another question that one of our chamber members had
Mm-hmm.
was, what can the grant money be used for?
So we do have a drop-down list of just items, right? PPE, rent, utilities, even inventory, things like that. But that's not prescriptive. That's just we're just trying to get some general information as to what people are going to be using it for. We're not going to be asking for receipts as to what it was spent on. The money is intended to keep a business up and running as long as as long as it can. It is up to the business owner to spend that money however they need to in order to keep the doors open.
Okay.
Shannon, a quick question from my side as well, if you don't mind again.
Sure.
And it does go back to the companies, if they've incorporated later on in, say, 2019, even, early 2020, may not have the full set of, healthy numbers to compare back to for where they truly need to be. Is there a mechanism to somehow level set that?
Where in operation as a different type of entity, like they were a sole proprietor and then incorporated, or they're just like a brand new? Say
if they're just brand new and they may have had, say, $500 of revenues come in for 1 month that they would compare to. Truly, they should be at, let's say $2,000 a month. And that's really where their health should continue. And they may have seen that in a month or two afterwards, or, have seen the increases up to that level, but are really struggling now, or, have been throughout that period to kind of reach those thresholds based on those health orders coming through. Is there anything to help or satisfy on that side?
No, unfortunately, they're tied. We're tied to those months. So if they can try to, and because part of the problem is there's the obviously the maximum benefit amount they want to be able to get, but in order to even get into worrying about the benefit, is you've got to show that 30% revenue reduction, and if they can't even get to that, then we can't really do, they can't go any further past even into applying. If the system won't even let them apply if they can't show that. We do have some flexibility if they were a different type of organization and then change structures in the period. So we've come across that quite a bit, where we've seen an incorporation date of mid 2020. So at the time they were not eligible because the program wasn't open for new businesses. But in conversations with them, we can see that they were actually a registered sole proprietor, and they just switched legal entities. So technically, yes, that business was in operation prior to, so we were able to go, okay, we can see that you were in operation, your legal entity changed, but the services you're providing, your business itself was an existing business. So in that case, it makes we can kind of work with that. But if they're brand new with no revenues to show for any of the periods that we can use, there's not much that we can work with. So there are businesses that do fall through the cracks as a result of that. We know that. If they email us, we're trying to keep track of those businesses just in case something might happen. I don't know that anything will, but we're trying to do our due diligence to, if something does change, if something does open up, that we might contact them and say, oh, hey, there's something new has changed. I don't see that we're so far into the program that that's going to happen, but we could still keep track of them. And sometimes even that just makes people feel, that there's a chance, and right now, hope is a great thing. But I don't know that we can do anything with that right at this point in the program.
Okay, we've got a few questions that came through. Can you elaborate on sole proprietors and on what type of additional documents they will need?
So a registered sole proprietor does not need to provide any additional documentation because they're registered in the Alberta Business Registry. We can see that they were a business. We can see when they commenced operations. It's the unregistered sole proprietors where there is more information, and I'm going to have to look what they need to provide. Hold on one second. There is an email planning to go out for some of these unregistered sole proprietors to, so let me just look this up, with a list of what they need to be able to provide. We ask that they don't send it in until they receive that notification, because we don't want to be flooded with the documentation before that team is ready, because it's a more onerous process to validate and verify operations. Let me just look this up. And this is in the program guidelines. So for unregistered sole proprietors, they are going to need a GST number if they have one, a copy of their 2019 T2125 statement of business, and then evidence that confirms submission of their personal tax filings. There is some additional information that they can provide if they don't have the tax records. I don't have that right off the top of my head as to what that is, but the letter that will be sent out to them does have a list of what information they can provide.
Okay, our next question is, what specific documentation is required or accepted as proof of revenue reduction?
That is a very good question that I am not quite sure about. That is a post-audit team question. I think that what they'll be looking at is maybe some bank statements. I don't know exactly what they'll be looking for. It's a good question. I could try and find that out and follow up with Noel if that works. I don't know that they're ready for it yet, so I'll ask.
Okay. Our next question is there qualitative or survey data surrounding new business appetite for startup in this last year? For context, how many businesses were looking at startup but canceled or delayed, same due to the pandemic and lack of support for new businesses because of the criteria? And I think Shannon's frozen in time.
Yeah, she's frozen. We'll wait for her to come back. Gotta love the internet. In the meantime, Fred has his hand up, but oh, well.
Okay, Fred. You're muted, Fred.
We should actually wait for Shannon to come back so that she
Sorry,
can.
no, I didn't have my hand up.
Oh.
I think she's logging out and then logging back in, Roberta.
Yeah, I'll watch for her.
So while we're waiting for Shannon to come back, how is everyone loving this sunshine we're getting? All this vitamin D.
Loving it. I'd rather be loving it from a beach somewhere, though.
We're coming with you.
Can't wait for spring to officially get here. And that means the robins have to be here. I don't care about anything else.
The geese are back.
The geese are back, yes.
So nice.
I haven't seen any robins yet, though. Although I did see a partially brown bunny out behind my house yesterday morning. My dog pointed it out. She probably wanted to hunt it, but you know.
Josie, you look like you've been busy by the looks of your background.
Yes, we are. We already sell 4,875 small taffy cone.
Oh,
Wow.
We still have 2,600 we can sell. So if you need, is all wrapping individually and put in the box. We can buy the box is $15 for 12.
Josie, send me some information and I'll get it out to everybody for you.
Yeah, sounds good.
I thought you were going to ask for samples, Roberta. Can you?
I'm not a toffee person, so.
Oh, I am. That got my attention.
For the last Friday, we do the Francophone fly raising flag, and I gave a box for my dignitary. If you come to do a speech, you have a box. Maybe next year.
Toffee and caramel are two things I just can't get into. I don't know why. I love everything else sweet except for those two. Oh, is Shannon back with us?
Yeah. It looks
Yeah.
like he is.
Sorry, my computer dropped my internet connection, so now I've called you on my work cell phone, so it doesn't have the video enabled, but
No problem.
so yes. So sorry, what was that last question that I was missing?
Is there qualitative or survey data surrounding new business appetite for startup in the last year? For context, how many businesses were looking at starting up but canceled or delayed due to the pandemic and lack of support for the new businesses because of the new criteria, or because of the criteria?
That's a very good question. I could look into that. I know that I did hear anecdotally that there were about 5,000 new businesses that started up in that time period, the March to October. But whether there were businesses that started up and then stalled as of due to COVID, I'm not sure. I know that quite a few of the new businesses we've talked to, because the work, everything was in the works already, they had no choice but to open, even though they didn't really, they knew the appetite for revenue, I guess. What's the nice way of saying it? They knew they weren't going to make a lot of money, but the machinations had already been in place to have everything opened, right? Like the suppliers were lined up, leases were signed, things like that. I'm not sure if Snita can maybe speak to that when it comes to, perhaps her ministry might have an idea.
Oh,
Sorry, I just trying to unmute myself. And I cannot put my camera because my internet will slow down. I definitely can find that information, which, like I say, we just gathered anecdotal information on that. I can find it out and send it to Roberta once we, maybe with as a part of the other questions that haven't been answered.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
and Nicole, I'm just gonna interrupt for a second. So I do have everyone's emails from your registration. So when I get the answers to the questions, I will send them out to the people who are asking the questions. And I will also be sharing the recording and any links that were in the chat box as well in an email to all of you later today.
All right, we're caught up on our questions. Would anybody from the floor like to ask Shannon any questions? Everybody's playing shy today. Nobody has any questions?
I have another question. Shannon, would you be able to let us know from a local economic development office perspective, how can we better connect in companies that may have some questions or may not feel comfortable in forums like this coming forward or anything that way, to better connect them into the services of either yourself, your staff, your office, the program? Any tips for us?
Shannon, if you're trying to talk, you're on mute, my dear.
Oh goodness, sorry about that. Here I had just a verbose answer. What I would say is, if they have questions, try and just direct them to the general email box. I will say that we do send a lot of people to the Business Link. Business Link has a great resource page of all of the different provincial and federal funding programs for businesses. So anybody who's looking for, we have a lot of people coming in asking us questions about other funds. What else can they get money for? Our program really just deals with the small and medium enterprise, that program. But we do send a lot of people to Business Link because they have a really good resource for all of those different programs. So I don't know if that helps at all, Tyler.
Yeah, maybe as a bit of a follow-up on that as well. So I've heard from a couple of companies, not going to name names by any stretch, that there were some cases with Business Link where it was almost a bit of a phone rodeo that was taking place. So they would end up cycling in, being passed from one to the next without some answers really at a critical and stressful time for their businesses as well. Are there any strategies or point folks that you're aware of that, you know, really can dig into information for some of these folks that we're dealing with on a regular basis?
Well, I don't know anyone over at Business Link, so I couldn't give you any information about that. We do, I know BizConnect is good for pointing people in directions, but I don't know that they answer a lot other than just pointing people in different directions. It's a good question. Yeah,
wasn't meant to put you on the spot. We will certainly dig into Business Link, and we have a good relationship with a lot of those folks anyway. So we'll definitely dig into it, and we'll likely end up just providing you over with some information in the future too, if we're able to find out really exceptional point people.
Yeah, sure. I'd appreciate that, because we don't, you know, we when things come up, we try to make contacts and try to do some diligence, but unless we know there's an issue, we don't necessarily know who to track down, I suppose is the right answer. This has come up when even just for different funding, right? Like we've discovered that, you know, there's a bunch of different funding programs, for example, like the faith and culture-based program. And faith and culture-based program is exclusive from SMERG. So if you've applied for one, you cannot apply for the other, but we didn't have a contact there. So we had to do some digging internally to, you know, to do that. So, yeah, there's lots of different things in play right now, and it's hard to keep track.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We did have a question come in. How is this grant applied for? Is it online, CRA account, through an accountant, through a bank? And a follow-up to that is, if applying ourselves, where can a person ask questions during the application process?
The application is through the My Alberta Digital ID MADI platform, and that's where the application portal is. You do need to have a MADI password set up for that. You do not need a validated MADI password. We've had a lot of people worried about that. The validated MADI password, you have to wait 10 business days to get a letter with I don't know, account number or something. The validated MADI passwords are really for your personal health records and things like that. So getting a validated one. Everything is online. We do have a lot of people asking if they can get paper copies of this application. No, everything is online. We're not tied into CRA at all. That's, I'm sorry, what was the other piece of that?
Can they, do they apply through an accountant or through the bank, or is it specifically that they have to do it themselves?
We do have a lot of accountants and bookkeepers applying on behalf of their clients. The hitch with that is technically the person who's applying should have legal signing authority, because you do have to attest to the information in the application. That being said, we do know there's a lot of accountants that are doing that on their clients' behalf. If you have questions during the application process, you have to email the general email box. There is no telephone number. There never was one set up. So
I'm just going to kind of interject. The application process actually wasn't that difficult, I found. I've received both grants now. And the first one took me about 20 to 25 minutes. The second one took me about 10, just because I knew better what I was doing. As a general hint, I would say have all of your financials in front of you so that you're not going back and forth. But overall, it wasn't a cumbersome or hard application at all, as far as grants go.
No, it's fairly straightforward. You're not really putting in, you know, you're not having to write paragraphs and paragraphs of information. It's what's your legal name, what's your operating name, what's your business number, what month are you going to choose, what's your revenue, and your banking. And like I said, make sure that your banking information you've got in front of you. The challenge, especially for us, has been ATB, because apparently what's on an ATB check is not actually your full bank account number. So we've had quite a few ATB payments coming back to us. So if you have an ATB account, best to get a direct deposit form, because they have the full banking information on there. If you have a banking error and you didn't put in your right banking information, it can add up to 3 weeks to get your payments, because we cannot alter your application until we get the error report back from the bank. So the bank will try to send it to you or deposit it for you, and then it will come back to us, and then we update the information, and then it goes back into payment processing, which is another 10 business days. So it can be quite lengthy. So it's really, really important to make sure that your banking info is correct. So.
Okay. Another question that has come up is, there are nonprofit organizations that don't have staff but are affected by the closures from the public health orders in regards to that they can't hold their events and have to postpone. Can those organizations apply for the SMERG?
So are they concerned about the employee count or the months?
They don't have employees.
So for those instances, generally what we say is either just put the number of people on the board.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. We're not going to dig into that too much. The issue is when you have over 500 employees, right? Because this program is only for small businesses, which is to a maximum of 500 employees. So we have a lot of, they're like, oh, well, it's or a sole proprietor, right? Well, are they the employee? They're the owner. Just put one person. That's not the biggest hill to die on for this application. Yeah.
Okay. Another question has come in. You spoke briefly about seasonal businesses.
Yeah.
What about businesses that remain in operation during all seasons but slow down during the winter? Specifically, businesses that cannot compare 2020 to 2019 revenues.
If you are not a seasonal business, you need to apply in the year-round stream, and you are stuck with the months that the months for the application are the months that you need to use, which is the April, May 2019 or February 2020. There's a definition of what a seasonal business is on the program guidelines, and if you do not fall within that definition, then you're a year-round organization. So take a look and see how you fit.
Okay. We're sitting, the time is 12:50. I see a few people have had to drop off because they've had other meetings to go to. Are there any other questions for Shannon?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tammy.
So I've been operating 2 businesses. So how does that complicate the situation when applying for the grant? Because both businesses were impacted by COVID.
Do you have 2 different business numbers, or is it same business number for both locations?
I think it's the same business, or like through CRA, it's considered the same.
So what you can do is you can still apply for 2 businesses under the same business number. If you're talking CRA though, that's a GST number, which isn't the same as right? I'm not sure if you're an unregistered or a registered business.
No, I'm a registered business.
You're a registered business. So yes, you can apply for multiple locations under the same business number. The only challenge for that is it does get held for a manual review, because we're always checking to make sure that duplicate applications aren't getting processed. So it will get held for a review. If you have a multiple business number or a multiple bank account, so if they have the same 2 businesses with the same bank account, those ones also will get held for a manual review. And that team will just double check that, yes, these are 2 separate it wasn't a duplicate. do their due diligence and then go from there.
Okay.
And make sure when you apply that you, for your revenue, that you're not combining the two, right? You're splitting out the revenues accordingly to the locations.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right here, I got a question. We provide transportation service for seniors.
Mhm.
And of course, once the seniors lodges were all shut down, we lost all of our income.
Right.
And we still have, of course, we still have to provide insurance and inspections and things like that there for our bus. Is this the right grant opportunity for us to apply for that?
Yeah, I would say so, because your business was affected, right? So can you point to those public health orders as the reason that your operations curtailed? And it sounds like you can. So if you can, then you should take a look at the rest of the eligibility criteria. And if you can meet all of the criteria, then yes, you should apply. Because of the type of organization, you should be able to tie it to those public health orders. It sounds like you've got a pretty close tie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then take a look at the rest of the criteria and toss your name in the hat, as it were.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the most important piece, is can you tie any curtailment or closure to the public health orders? So if you can do that and meet the rest of the criteria, then there should be no issue with applying.
All right. Are there any more questions for Shannon? Okay, Roberta, I think I'm going to pull a Ken here. In his famous
Going
word.
once, going twice. Yeah, you got it.
Before I do that, though, I'd like to, on behalf of Legal, Morinville, and Redwater Chambers and all our partners, thank you everyone for attending today. There were some really good questions, and I think a couple of them actually put Shannon on the spot.
Yeah, yeah.
And she answered them very well. Thank you to Sneda for sending out the email in regards to this session, and me being the way I am, or the first one to jump at the opportunity and get the ball rolling. And so thank you very much for that. Thank you to all the dignitaries and other staff of the municipalities that came today. I see Amy's there. Thank you all for coming. We hope that this was very informative for you. I had mentioned to Roberta prior to this that there is another project that I'm looking into that's going to be partnering with other chambers in regards to AHS community engagement for businesses. So I'm thinking we're going to probably do that in April, because we are quite busy in Chamberland right now, and some of us have our AGM coming up and all that stuff. So we will definitely be in contact with everyone, and hopefully everyone can participate in that one. That's going to be a really good one. So I'm going to do a Ken Colby and ask 3 times for any questions. Thank you everyone for coming. And does there anyone have any questions? Going once?
I actually don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Go ahead, Nada.
So I don't know if everybody knows that we actually make some changes for our Canada-Alberta Job Grant. This is a training program, and I think it's going to benefit a lot of small businesses. So the major changes are now that training doesn't need to be incremental. That means that the training is no longer required to be in addition to the employer's regular operations. Also, which is going to be huge for small businesses, is that employee family members are now eligible for training. So for example, if a business has a family member such as a wife or daughter, and they are employed in the business, now they're eligible for the Canada Alberta Job Grant, which is really good. And some business owners are now also eligible for the training. So the only criteria is that the business cannot be more than 4 people, or they cannot have more than 4 employees. So for example, it can be 1 business owners and 3 employers, or 2 business owners and 2 employers. So they'll be able to access the Canada Alberta Job Grant. So this is good news. And if you need more information, maybe later on we can do another session on that.
Thank you so much, Nada. And the way Roberta and I are looking at each other, there might be a possibility there. And we'll also get Legal involved as well and make it a team effort in Sturgeon County for our chambers. Any more questions? Going twice. And going 3 times. Okay, it's just about 1 o'clock. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to have you. And thank you, Sneda and Shannon, for providing this opportunity for our local businesses.
Well, thank you for having me.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day. Nicole, do you want me to email you the link so that you can send it out as well for the recording?
Do you want to stop recording?
No. Yes. No,